Snow still clung white to the hood of the car when Emily Hartman vanished in the town of Wasilla, Alaska. Population 8,200. The night of December 3, 2011, arrived with a biting wind blowing along the ice-covered Talkeetna Mountains. At 6:45 p.m., Emily's coworker from the grocery store window saw the 27-year-old step out into the parking lot, pulling her thick coat tight. Emily opened the door of her 2006 green Subaru Forester, her wool gloves resting on the passenger seat, its headlights cutting through the dense snowfall. A driver passing by Kashwitna Lake recalled seeing that same car turn onto a narrow, icy road leading to the water's edge, then disappearing into the dark night. What happened in the next 47 minutes would haunt Wasilla for years to come. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. On December 3, 2011, Wasilla, Alaska, a small town nestled in a snow-covered valley, was steeped in the harsh cold typical of the northern region. The sky darkened early, with flickering yellow streetlights casting shadows on pedestrians who pulled their coats tight and hurried home. At the familiar grocery store in the town center, the last shift of the day had just ended. The wall clock read 6:45 p.m. when Emily Hartman, 27, left the counter, donned her heavy parka, wrapped a silver-gray wool scarf around her neck, and stepped out into the parking lot, freshly blanketed with snow. She was a well-liked employee, always leaving her shift on time, and that night was no exception. The last coworker to see her watched Emily stride quickly toward her green Subaru Forester, a familiar sight in Wasilla, then flick on its blazing headlights amid the thickening snow fog. The engine roared to life, its light illuminating swirling snowflakes in the air, and the car slowly rolled out of the lot. Around the same time, a truck driver passing along the main road toward the outskirts later reported seeing a dark green SUV turn onto a small road leading to Kashwitna Lake. That road was rarely traveled, dotted only with a few scattered hunting cabins and a path to the frozen lake. In the driver's view, the car's lights flashed for a moment before vanishing into the heavy snow rolling down, and then there was nothing more. At Emily's small home, just a 15-minute drive from the store, her family had dinner ready as usual, waiting for her return. But the phone in the living room rang repeatedly, only to return long, hopeless tones. Repeated calls and texts went unanswered, stirring unease. Emily had never once caused her family worry. She was punctual, cautious, and always kept them informed. Night fell quickly, the wind whistling through the door cracks, and anxiety grew in the household. By 10 p.m., waiting turned to panic. They knew something was terribly wrong. Trembling and desperate, a family member picked up the phone, dialed emergency services, and reported that Emily had not come home after her shift. Within 15 minutes, the first Wasilla Police Department patrol car pulled up to the brightly lit little house in the thick snowfall. Inside, the air was heavy with worry. Emily's parents immediately provided basic details: age, appearance, height, weight, last outfit worn, leaving the store, and crucially, the vehicle. A 2006 dark green Subaru Forester. Officers meticulously noted every detail, then quickly called in another team to the grocery store to collect coworker statements. The cashier on duty that evening recounted that Emily left the store at 6:45 p.m., appearing completely normal, showing no signs of restlessness or worry. When pressed, he recalled she wore a navy parka, a silver-gray wool scarf, high rubber boots, walked quickly due to the cold, and even smiled as she said goodbye. This seemingly simple detail was noted as it indicated a normal mood, ruling out the possibility that Emily had planned to leave beforehand. Police immediately reviewed the store's security camera system, both inside and out. Indoor footage captured Emily tidying the counter, adjusting her scarf, and walking out the door. The outdoor camera only caught the glare of the Forester's headlights on the snowy ground before it vanished into the thick snowstorm. A technician zoomed in and slowed the footage multiple times, but the swirling snow obscured all details, making the license plate unreadable. The investigation team then turned to a gas station about a mile east of the store. Camera data there recorded a strong beam of light passing by at 6:55 p.m. It's consistent with the time Emily might have driven through, but again, the heavy snow obscured everything, leaving only moving specks of light on the screen. The report noted, unable to confirm license plate, unable to identify driver. These initial electronic clues, rather than providing leads, plunged the case into a chilling haze. Meanwhile, at Emily's home, another officer questioned the family about her daily routines. Her parents insisted she never left without notifying them, had stable finances, no debts, and showed no signs of wanting to leave. Emily's best friend called in for a statement, confirmed receiving a text at 6:50 p.m. saying, "Heading home now, it's freezing." This message became a critical timestamp for reconstructing the timeline. By cross-referencing coworker accounts, friends' testimony, and camera data, police mapped Emily's movements, left the store at 6:45, sent a text at 6:50, appeared near the gas station at 6:55. But after that point, all traces vanished completely. The only witness, a truck driver on the Glen Highway, reported seeing an SUV resembling a Subaru Forester turn onto the small road to Kashwitna Lake shortly after 7 p.m. This detail wasn't enough to confirm, but it was noted in the initial investigation report as a key lead to pursue. Investigators added that the road to the lake was lightly traveled, used mainly by locals for winter fishing or shortcuts through the woods. In a snowstorm, turning down that road was unusual, especially for a young woman driving alone. By dawn on December 4th, a preliminary report was completed. Emily Hartman, female, 27, missing since 6:45 p.m. on December 3, 2011. Vehicle, 2006 dark green Subaru Forester. Last clue, a witness reported seeing an SUV matching the description turn onto the road to Kashwitna Lake. Victim and vehicle location unconfirmed. Given the emergency and harsh weather, a missing person alert was issued that night. Emily's file was entered into the NCIC system, faxed to police stations in Anchorage, Palmer, and surrounding areas. Her portrait, detailed vehicle description, and time of disappearance were printed, posted on supermarket bulletin boards, gas stations, churches, and sent to local radio. On the airwaves, a steady voice rang out in the frigid night. A young woman, Emily Hartman, went missing last night in Wasilla, driving a green Subaru Forester, license plate unclear, last seen near the road to Kashwitna Lake. If you have information, please contact police immediately. In the first hours after the urgent alert, Wasilla police, alongside local volunteers, began an emergency search plan in the suspected area. The most notable detail in the initial report was the truck driver's testimony, seeing a green SUV turn onto the small road to Kashwitna Lake around 7 p.m. On the morning of December 4, 2011, as dawn broke and the wind still whipped coldly, a search team of 6, equipped with K9 units, high-powered flashlights, and metal detectors, began scouring that route. The scene was desolate, the road flanked by snow-covered trees, shrouded in thick frost. This was a narrow trail to the lake, rarely used in winter, so any unusual sign could be a clue. Around 9 a.m., as the team advanced nearly a mile from the turnoff, a young officer bent down and noticed something protruding from the fresh snow. He carefully brushed away the thick layer, revealing a silver-gray wool glove, closely matching the coworker's description of Emily's last outfit. The scene was immediately cordoned off. Forensic specialists quickly collected the item, sealed it in a plastic bag, and noted its exact GPS location. Along the roadside, beyond the glove, they found faint skid marks stretching a few meters. Snowfall overnight had blurred these traces, making it impossible to determine if they were tire tracks or drag marks. A technician closely examined them and concluded, "We can only confirm the snow was compressed by something heavy, but it's not clear enough for analysis." In the Anchorage Police Department's lab, The glove was prioritized for processing that day. Technicians carefully turned it inside out, collecting fabric fibers and epithelial cells. Rapid DNA analysis was cross-checked with a hair sample provided by Emily's mother. The results confirmed the DNA in the glove matched Emily Hartman's. This report was rushed to the Wasilla office, marking the first physical evidence proving Emily had been on the road to Kashwitna Lake. For the lead investigator, this was a critical turning point. The case was no longer based on speculation or witness accounts, but now had concrete evidence on the ground. News of the discovery was kept internal to avoid disrupting the investigation, but among the investigators, the atmosphere grew heavier. A veteran officer sighed as he read the report. If the glove was dropped there, it means Emily left the car or was forced to leave it. The second possibility sparked fears that the young woman may have fallen into someone else's hands. Search teams expanded their scope around the road to the lake. Under thick snow, they scanned for any fabric scraps, tire marks, or leftover items, but the previous night's storm had erased most traces. Canine units were deployed, but the scent was faint and quickly lost, as if swept away by the cold wind. In the official report sent out by the end of December 4th, investigators noted, DNA evidence from the glove confirms Emily Hartman was present at the road to Kashwitna Lake. Snow marks suggest object movement, but are too faint to conclude. No vehicle or additional traces found. This information immediately elevated the case to top priority. Nearby police stations were ordered to increase checks for green Subaru Foresters, and missing person rescue units were mobilized to the Kashwitna Lake area. That night, in a cramped, brightly lit Wasilla police station office, a map of the lake area was spread across a table. Red pins marked the turnoff, the glove's location, and surrounding side roads. The lead investigator circled the lake area in red and said firmly, "We have reason to believe Emily went this way. From now on, this is the focal point of the entire search." With that discovery, all theories converged on one point: Emily's Subaru and her own whereabouts had vanished on that snowy road. The case officially entered a new phase, no longer a vague missing person report, but now tied to solid evidence. Emily Hartman had definitely been at the Kashwitna Lake area before completely disappearing. The temporary command room at the Wasilla police station glowed with white light all night. On the large map spread across the table, the Kashwitna Lake area was now circled in red, with a pin marking where Emily Hartman's glove was found. After the DNA report confirmed the glove belonged to Emily, the entire search focus shifted to the lake. On the morning of December 5, 2011, rescue teams, in coordination with Alaska Police, launched a plan to scan the water's surface. At the time, sonar technology was used in many search operations, but Wasilla's available system was outdated, mainly designed for fish detection and lakebed mapping. These sonar devices could only produce blurry images, struggling to distinguish large objects from natural rock formations. A boat equipped with sonar was launched from the lake's south shore. Technicians closely monitored the screen, where gray streaks curved slowly and faded. They moved in arcs, dividing the lake into a grid to ensure no area was missed. But for hours, all that appeared was the cold, muddy lakebed, a few sunken logs, and indistinct lumps. No shape resembled a car. A lieutenant in charge sighed, "If the Subaru is down there, this sonar isn't good enough to give us a clear image. Everything's just blurry gray dots." Simultaneously, police mobilized a helicopter from Anchorage to sweep circles around the lake and surrounding forest. From above, the lake stretched for miles, a white expanse flanked by dark pine forests. The pilot repeatedly lowered altitude, aiming spotlights at the forest edge, hoping to spot an unusual break in the snow, a glint of metal, or hidden tire tracks. But aside from animal trails, nothing stood out. The flight team's report was brief. No vehicle signs detected, no clear abnormalities. At the same time, a ground patrol team was tasked with checking all side roads connecting the main route to the highway. These were small dirt paths, often snow-covered in winter and rarely cleared. Officers used off-road vehicles and snowmobiles, stopping to inspect each turn, photographing and noting any suspicious tire marks. They hoped to find evidence of the Subaru Forester leaving the lake area for another direction. Yet every effort hit the same wall, snow falling continuously from the night of December 3rd to the morning of December 5th had erased all traces. Every side road was pristine white, with no tire marks or stray metal fragments. The only faint clues had been buried by the weather. By the end of December 5th, as all three search efforts, water, air, and ground, returned empty-handed, an emergency meeting was held at the police station. Investigators took turns reading reports. Sonar detected no metal objects consistent with a vehicle. Helicopter sweeps of the forest edge showed no abnormalities. Checks of side roads to the highway found no Subaru traces. A summary was printed, with bold text at the end. No viable leads available. In the heavy silence of the room, the hum of the heater drilled into everyone's ears. The lead investigator closed the file, leaned back in his chair, eyes ringed with exhaustion. He knew that in Alaska's winter conditions, each passing day reduced the chances of finding Emily alive. The stark truth was that, aside from the glove and a vague witness statement, the police had no evidence to cling to. Kashwitna Lake, the surrounding forest, and the network of cold side roads had swallowed all traces. After the December 5th meeting with a report of no viable leads, the lead investigator shifted focus from physical searches to analyzing Emily Hartman's personal data. He understood that if physical traces couldn't be found, her phone and finances might be the only keys to where she went in her final moments. The technical team quickly contacted the telecom provider in Anchorage to extract Emily's phone data. The iPhone, identified by the serial number provided by her family, was confirmed active until 7:12 p.m. on December 3, 2011. After that, the signal vanished, with no pings from any cell towers. This raised the possibility that the device was abruptly powered off or entered an area with no coverage. However, maps showed that even the road to Kashwitna Lake was within basic signal range. The sudden loss of signal at 7:12 p.m. led investigators to believe the phone was manually turned off or its battery removed. This was unusual, as Emily was known for being cautious, always charging her phone before leaving home, and never cutting off contact with her family. Concurrently, another team focused on her financial records. They collected data from the local bank where Emily had an account and reviewed her credit card activity. The report was clear. Emily's last transaction was at noon on December 3rd, when she bought a quick meal near the grocery store. After that, there were no further activities, no withdrawals, no card swipes, no online logins. Her account balance remained untouched, with no signs of depletion. For a young, independent woman, disappearing without touching her finances was nearly unthinkable. Those who flee voluntarily typically prepare some funds to survive. Emily did not. The lead investigator printed a map with the phone's last timestamp, 7:12 p.m. When cross-referenced with the witness account of the Subaru turning toward the lake, the two pieces aligned chillingly. Emily may have stopped communicating right after appearing at the Kashwitna area. He noted in the report, "We have no evidence she left that location, but all technical data ends at that time and place." Additionally, police checked her email and social media records. Emily's Facebook account showed no logins after December 3rd, no sent messages, no status updates. Her personal email remained untouched, with no new messages beyond routine promotional ads. This digital silence further supported the theory that Emily hadn't planned to disappear or start a new life. After nearly a week of exhaustive data review, the internal conclusion was clear. There was no evidence Emily left home voluntarily. Her phone shut off abruptly at 7:12 p.m. Her finances froze after the disappearance, with no new transactions or communications. In the official report on December 10, 2011, Wasilla police ruled out voluntary flight. Emily Hartman's case was officially classified as a mysterious disappearance with suspected criminal elements, forcing the investigation to escalate to a criminal inquiry. With Emily Hartman's phone and financial data dead-ending at 7:12 p.m. on December 3rd, Wasilla police turned over every stone for a new lead. They expanded the search to nearby lakes, coordinated with Anchorage and Palmer police, reviewed every traffic incident report, and checked every green Subaru Forester spotted on the roads. The results remained empty. Throughout December, over 60 local volunteers joined the search, some days wading through waist-deep snow, combing every tree around Kashwitna Lake. Metal detectors were used along the lake's edge in case car fragments were missed, but all they found were rusted aluminum cans, old fishing hooks, and scrap metal. As the new year of 2012 began, the community's patience started to wane. Emily's family diligently posted flyers at gas stations, supermarkets, and churches, but the printed papers faded under snowstorms and were torn by icy winds. A few anonymous tips came in, but after verification, all were either false or cruel hoaxes. One anonymous caller claimed to have seen Emily in Anchorage, but area cameras confirmed no one matching her description. Another reported hearing screams near an abandoned cabin in Talkeetna, but police found only deer tracks. Fleeting hopes flickered out quickly. The January 2012 summary report showed the effort was nearing exhaustion: over 200 hours of helicopter flights, 15 sonar scans of Kashwitna Lake, 40 witness interviews, yet no viable leads emerged. In the meeting room, the lead investigator read the temporary conclusion slowly: victim and vehicle location unconfirmed. No new data from phone, finances, or witnesses. Case at a standstill. Those present understood the weight of those words: when all resources are exhausted without results, the case must be downgraded. On February 14, 2012, exactly 2 months after Emily's disappearance, the case was transferred to the Alaska Police Department's Cold Case Unit. The decision was recorded in the official report: Emily Hartman case, missing since December 3, 2011, in Wasilla, Alaska. Status: victim and vehicle location unconfirmed. Transferred to cold case. From that moment, the investigation, once mobilizing dozens of people and advanced equipment, was officially frozen. Officers retained the right to reopen the file if new information surfaced, but in reality, this meant the case slipped from priority, making way for newer, more urgent cases. For the family, this decision was a final blow. Emily's mother sat outside their home, clutching the report, eyes red, telling a reporter, "My daughter can't just vanish like that, but they say there's nothing more to do." The Wasilla community, once stirred by collective search nights, grew quiet. People still whispered about Emily when passing the store where she worked, but only as a fading memory. In the chilly archives of the police department, a thick, gray hardbound file, labeled Hartman Emily, Missing Person, was neatly tucked into the cold case drawer. Blurry camera images, a map of the Kashwitna Lake area, marked with red circles, and phone data printouts, frozen at 7:12 p.m., all lay dormant in a file no one opened daily anymore. The case, once the focus of local news and radio waves, now existed only on cold, lifeless pages. As the winter of 2012 gave way to spring, the ice melted, revealing Kashwitna Lake's surface, but no one returned to search. Everything fell silent, as if Alaska's nature itself conspired to bury the truth. Emily Hartman's file officially became a cold case, and the name of the 27-year-old woman was added to the long list of unresolved disappearances in this frigid land. When Emily Hartman's file was officially transferred to cold case in February 2012, investigative activity seemed to stall. In the Wasilla community, the story of the young woman's disappearance gradually became a sad memory recounted at gatherings or winter festivals. But occasionally, faint glimmers of hope sparked, forcing police to dust off the thick file and add a few more pages to the report. In 2013, a local fisherman drilling through the ice on Kashwitna Lake to cast his line reported to police that he saw a shadowy shape beneath the thick ice. He described it as a rectangular, roughly 3-meter-long object resembling a metal frame or car body. The news instantly rekindled painful memories for Emily's family, who urgently called the police, and demanded an immediate check. A dive team was dispatched, equipped with handheld sonar and underwater cameras. But when they broke through the ice and descended into the freezing water, all the cameras captured were patches of mud and sunken rocks. No car, no distinct object. The report concluded tersely, the shadow likely caused by a large log trapped under the ice. The flicker of hope was extinguished, adding another layer of disappointment to the file. In 2014, a new detail emerged when police received a belated statement from a man living near the Glen Highway. He claimed that on the night of December 3, 2011, the night Emily vanished, he drove past the road to Kashwitna Lake around 7 p.m. and noticed a dark-colored pickup truck parked near the forest edge. At the time of the disappearance, he hadn't thought much of it, assuming it belonged to a hunter or fisherman. Only 3 years later, when stumbling across old news online, did he feel uneasy and decide to report it. Investigators recorded the statement cautiously. The presence of a pickup truck near the scene at the time of Emily's disappearance was indeed noteworthy. But the challenge was that the witness couldn't recall the license plate, nor could he confirm the exact color or model. He only emphasized that the truck had a covered bed, dim headlights, and seemed to have a thick layer of snow on its hood. The case analysis team immediately narrowed their focus within a 50-mile radius of Wasilla. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of registered pickup trucks in 2011, 2012. Police reviewed DMV data, filtering for dark-colored older models, but the list still contained hundreds of entries. Without a license plate or distinctive identifying features, the search hit a dead end. A veteran investigator stated bluntly in the report, "Without more specific details, this statement isn't sufficient to pursue as a viable lead." Emily's family, upon hearing the news, went through another cycle of emotions, hope, then despair. Emily's mother told a local reporter, "If only someone could remember one more detail, a number, a sticker on the truck, we might have gotten closer to the truth." But the harsh reality was that memories recalled 3 years after the event were often distorted by time and human recollection. The year-end 2014 summary report stated clearly, in 2013-2014, 2 new pieces of information emerged. 1. A fisherman reported a shadow under the ice. Inspection confirmed no suspicious object. 2. A belated witness reported seeing a pickup truck near the road to Kashwitna Lake around the time of the disappearance. No license plate recalled, no model identified. Result: unable to narrow suspect list, no viable leads. The phrase "no viable leads" was typed once again, echoing the conclusion of every report since Emily's disappearance. And so, by the end of 2014, Emily Hartman's file remained in the cold case drawer, only thicker by a few pages and another layer of dust. The faint clues, the belated statements, all only sank the case deeper into prolonged silence. The years 2015 to 2017 passed in quiet. Emily Hartman's file stayed tucked in the cold case drawer, occasionally opened when a rookie officer was assigned to read it to familiarize themselves with old cases. The Wasilla community rarely mentioned it anymore, except during the occasional candlelight vigils organized by Emily's family to mark the anniversary of her disappearance. But then, in the summer of 2018, an unexpected spark ignited, not from the investigation room, but from a small corner of the internet. In June of that year, an anonymous Reddit user posted a screenshot from Google Earth. The image showed the frozen surface of Kashwitna Lake, with a dark, rectangular shape faintly visible beneath the greenish water. The user captioned it, "Does anyone else think this looks like a car?" The post quickly went viral. Some dismissed it as a large log, while others believed they were seeing critical evidence overlooked. The coincidence prompted netizens to link it to Emily Hartman's 2011 disappearance. Comments flooded with theories. What if her Subaru Forester has been submerged there for 7 years? Another user posted older satellite images, pointing out that the dark shape appeared consistently in the same spot. This fueled further suspicion the object could be the missing vehicle. Soon after, on the WebSleuth forum, where thousands dissect unresolved cases, a new thread titled Emily Hartman, Wasilla, Alaska, 2011, vehicle in Kashwitna Lake, was created. Dozens of discussion pages emerged within days. Users downloaded satellite images, measuring the object's dimensions using Google Earth's distance tool. The results were staggering, roughly 4.4 meters long and 1.7 meters wide, almost exactly matching the specifications of a 2006 Subaru Forester. Some members even built 3D models, comparing satellite images to real photos of the car, and claimed the proportions were near perfect. The social media buzz caught the attention of local media. An Anchorage newspaper ran a story. Internet users claimed to have spotted missing vehicle in Emily Hartman case. Emily's family, living in despair for 7 years, immediately contacted the police, demanding verification. At this point, the Wasilla Police Department was caught off guard. They had scanned the lake multiple times in 2011, 2012, with no results. Could they have missed something? Public pressure mounted rapidly. Hundreds of comments on the local TV station's Facebook page called for the case to be reopened. Some wrote, "If the internet found what the police couldn't, who can we rely on?" Others expressed outrage. 7 years, and a family still has no answers. They at least deserve a new survey. Emails, calls, and even online petitions flooded the Anchorage Police Office, which managed the dive team and more advanced sonar equipment. Internally, veteran officers were initially skeptical. One investigator who worked the case remarked, "We scanned that lake multiple times, every angle. There was nothing." But the public pressure, combined with the surprising precision of the amateur analyses on WebSleuth, forced the department's leadership to reconsider. A closed-door meeting was held, with social media materials printed out as evidence of public sentiment. The commander concluded, "We can't let the internet take the lead while ignoring the victim's family. Even if it's just to confirm, we have to act." On September 18, 2018, the Anchorage police issued an official press release. They would reopen the Emily Hartman case to resurvey Kashwitna Lake. The statement read, "We have received multiple public reports about satellite imagery, possibly related to the 2011 disappearance of Emily Hartman. The Anchorage Police Department, in coordination with Wasilla Police, will conduct a survey of Kashwitna Lake using next-generation sonar technology at the earliest opportunity." For Emily's family, this was the first ray of light in years of darkness. Her mother broke down in tears during a local newspaper interview. "I just want to know where my daughter is. If it takes strangers on the internet to get answers, so be it, as long as we're not forgotten." With that decision, the Emily Hartman case, once deemed a cold case, was officially revived. The internet had done what years of investigation could not, forced authorities to return to Kashwitna Lake, where all theories began. This time, with more advanced technology, no one was willing to accept another empty-handed result like in 2011. The September 18, 2018, press release from the Anchorage Police paved the way for a new phase in the Emily Hartman case. But in reality, it was Alaska's community of volunteers and amateur divers who took the first steps. They had closely followed discussions on Reddit and WebSleuth, and upon hearing that the Google Earth image might match the missing Subaru Forester, several groups volunteered to bring next-generation sonar to Kashwitna Lake. Unlike the outdated technology police used in 2011, they now had advanced side-scan sonar, capable of rendering lakebed images with far greater detail. On October 2, 2018, Kashwitna Lake was gray and choppy, with early autumn winds whipping the trees along the shore. A small aluminum boat was launched, equipped with a side-scan system connected to a large display. The operators couldn't hide their tension. After 7 years of dead ends, could they find what the old sonar missed? As the boat glided slowly in scan patterns, the screen showed black and white images far clearer than those from 2011. The lakebed appeared not as meaningless gray blobs, but with distinct shapes of rocks and rotting logs. Over an hour in, as the boat reached the coordinates pinpointed by online sleuths, a strange shape appeared on the screen. Over 4 meters long, with sharp, rectangular edges, it was partially embedded in mud, but clearly showed a metal frame structure. Parallel lines ran along its body, causing everyone on the boat to fall silent. An amateur diver whispered, "This can't be a rock or log, this is a car." The next images strengthened the suspicion: 4 small symmetrical dark patches at the corners where wheels would be. They immediately saved all data, took screenshots, and exported sonar files for later analysis. Back on shore, the volunteers opened laptops, zooming in on every angle. Measurements were taken: 4.42 meters long, 1.75 meters wide, nearly identical to a 2006 Subaru Forester. The car Emily drove the night she vanished. A dive team member said during a recorded debrief, "There's no doubt anymore. This is an SUV under Kashwitna Lake." The next day, a detailed report with all sonar data was sent directly to the Anchorage Police Department. The divers emphasized, the object found on the lakebed matches the size, shape, and frame structure of a car. Exact coordinates: south shore of Kashwitna Lake, approximately 300 meters from where the glove was found. The report included comparison images between the sonar data and technical diagrams of a Subaru Forester, with outlines matching too closely to dismiss. The news spread quickly. Local TV channels reported, "New sonar detects car-like object in Kashwitna Lake, possibly linked to Emily Hartman's 2011 disappearance." Emily's family, upon being informed, broke down in tears. Her father said through sobs, "I knew she never left us. She's been here, under this lake, for 7 years." In an emergency meeting on October 6, Anchorage and Wasilla police reviewed all data. The room was thick with silence, broken only by the projector displaying images of the vehicle frame underwater. The lead investigator concluded, "We can't deny it. This is a vehicle. This could be Emily's Subaru. It's time to recover it." An official order was issued that day: prepare to salvage the vehicle from Kashwitna Lake. 7 years after her disappearance, the Emily Hartman case entered a decisive phase. From a cold case buried in dusty files, thanks to the internet and side-scan sonar, the truth was now waiting to be pulled from the icy depths of an Alaskan lake. On October 12, 2018, just days after the official decision, Kashwitna Lake became the focal point of all Alaska. From early morning, specialized rescue vehicles, a floating crane, and a professional dive team gathered around the south shore at the exact coordinates indicated by the sonar. The air was biting, the lake surface covered in thin fog, but dozens of people lined the shore, watching every move. Emily Hartman's family was invited. Sitting silently in a police car parked nearby, their tense eyes fixed on the water. The first dive team entered the water at 8 a.m., carrying steel cables and underwater cameras. It took nearly 30 minutes to locate the sonar's marker. And then they finally touched a cold metal object. A voice crackled over the radio. "It's definitely a car. We're securing the cables." Step by step, thick cables were wrapped around the vehicle's frame, fastened to load-bearing points. A diver reported, "The car is tilted left, sunk about 2 feet into mud, front windshield shattered." After nearly 2 hours, everything was ready. The floating crane on the lake began operating. The cables tightening, pulling up a column of white foam from 20 feet deep. As the dark metal mass slowly emerged, the entire area seemed to hold its breath. First, the roof appeared, caked in black mud and algae. Then the body, battered in places, windows shattered. Finally, the full green Subaru Forester came into view, rusted but unmistakable. On shore, an investigator whispered, "That's it." The vehicle was placed on a large plastic tarp, black water streaming from its frame. The forensic team immediately conducted a preliminary inspection. They noted the VIN on the chassis, though worn by time, was still legible. The numbers matched the registration of Emily Hartman's Subaru Forester. This confirmation erased all doubt. This was the car she drove on the night of December 3, 2011. When the door was opened, the scene inside moved many to tears. On the driver's seat, a small leather wallet encrusted with algae was found, containing a bank card and driver's license bearing Emily Hartman's name. On the back seat, a heavy navy parka, matching the coworker's description of her last outfit, still had its buttons intact, though faded by water. Under the thick mud on the floor, forensics carefully retrieved a cracked screen iPhone, recognizable as a 2011 model. And then, in the rear seating area, they found what no one wanted to see, but all had waited 7 years for human bone fragments, mixed with algae and mud. The area fell silent. Emily's family, hearing the report through the police car's window, sobbed uncontrollably. The lead investigator gripped the case file tightly, his voice hoarse. The missing person case is now officially a homicide investigation. All evidence was sealed and sent to the Anchorage lab for analysis. But at the scene, the basic truth was undeniable. Emily Hartman didn't flee or vanish without a trace. She died, and her death was tied to the Subaru submerged in Kashwitna Lake. That evening, a press release was issued. The Subaru Forester of Emily Hartman, missing since 2011, has been recovered from Kashwitna Lake. Found inside were a wallet, parka, phone, and human remains. The case has been reclassified from missing person to homicide investigation. The news swept nationwide, turning a case thought forgotten into a new focal point of American media. And from here, the biggest question arose: who caused Emily and her car to lie at the bottom of the lake for 7 years? The Anchorage Forensic Lab received all evidence from Kashwitna Lake on October 12, 2018. Sealed boxes containing the wallet, parka, phone, and most critically, the human bone fragments from the rear seating area were rushed to the priority processing area. The bone and DNA analysis team began work in a tense, heavy atmosphere. They knew 7 years of waiting had ended, and the Hartman family was expecting a definitive answer. The bone samples were cleaned with a special solution to remove mud and algae. After drying, technicians carefully separated skull fragments, pelvic bones, and long bones still retaining their shape. A forensic expert examined them under a microscope, noting multiple water-worn scratches, but also a large crack running across the skull. In the preliminary report, she noted, the fracture extends from the left temporal region to the back. Sharp edges, no signs of long-term erosion. Suggests injury formed before death. Inconsistent with a traffic accident or water submersion impact. While the forensic team documented bone trauma, the molecular biology unit began DNA analysis. They extracted samples from the femur, where DNA preservation is more likely than in smaller bones. The sequencing process took 3 days. The results were cross-checked with the DNA sample Emily's family provided in 2011. The genetic markers matched 99.99%. There was no doubt the remains in the Subaru were Emily Hartman's. When the DNA results were announced internally, the atmosphere in the Anchorage police meeting room grew heavy. After 7 years, they had an answer about the victim's identity. But the truth was even harsher. Emily didn't die in an accident. The skull fracture confirmed she suffered a strong impact before the car sank. A forensic investigator presented to the team, this wasn't a traffic accident. This is a traumatic brain injury from direct force. The death occurred the night of December 3, 2011, likely minutes before the car submerged. Beyond the remains, the items found in the car were meticulously analyzed. The parka was examined under UV light, revealing faint dark stains, but water damage made it impossible to confirm if they were blood or another substance. The iPhone was sent to the digital forensics lab. Though heavily damaged, technicians recovered system logs confirming the device shut off abruptly at 7:12 p.m., matching the 2011 telecom data. This alignment reinforced the conclusion that the shutdown wasn't due to a dead battery, but rather external force or intent. Forensic experts also determined the time of death based on bone condition and chemical analysis. The conclusion indicated Emily died within the time frame of her disappearance, with no signs of surviving longer. Thus, any hope she might have lived after vanishing was extinguished. On October 20, 2018, a forensic report over 60 pages long was completed and sent to the prosecutor's office. The conclusion was printed in bold: cause of death traumatic brain injury from strong impact, manner of death homicide. Time of death, night of December 3, 2011. Consistent with disappearance. Victim, Emily Hartman. The Wasilla and Anchorage police held a joint press conference. The spokesperson announced, "We confirm the remains found in the Subaru in Kashwitna Lake are Emily Hartman's. Forensic examination confirms she died from external force, inconsistent with an accident." The case has been officially reclassified as homicide, a murder investigation. The news swept across Alaska and the U.S., transforming the Emily Hartman case from a mysterious disappearance into a major murder investigation. For the family, this news was a painful truth, but also a pivotal turning point. After 7 years of living in uncertainty, they finally knew for certain that Emily hadn't abandoned them or simply met with an accident. She was the victim of a deliberate crime. From here, the investigation no longer revolved around where she was, but shifted to a chilling question: who killed Emily Hartman? And how did her Subaru end up at the bottom of the lake on a frigid winter night? Immediately after the forensic report confirmed Emily Hartman's murder, the Anchorage investigation team decided to re-evaluate the entire 2011 case file. On October 25, 2018, the time-worn documents were pulled from the cold case drawer and spread across a long table in the meeting room. Investigators meticulously reviewed every record, from the initial statements of family and coworkers to the later testimonies of witnesses who came forward. The goal was to re-examine every detail that might have been overlooked 7 years earlier when the case was still considered a mysterious disappearance. During the first review session, one name kept resurfacing: Mark Ellison. In the 2011 file, Mark was noted as Emily's ex-boyfriend, having broken up about 6 months before her disappearance. Some lines in friends' statements indicated their relationship was strained, marked by frequent arguments, and that Mark was jealous. At the time, police had briefly interviewed him. He claimed that on the night of December 3, 2011, he was at home watching TV, with no contact with Emily. Lacking physical evidence, his statement was recorded but not prioritized. However, upon closer inspection of the records, an investigator spotted a suspicious detail: Mark Ellison wasn't just interviewed once. He also appeared on the list of volunteers who joined the search for Emily in early December 2011. In the search team's log, his name was clearly noted as present at least 2 searches around the Glen Highway and Kashwitna Lake area. This caught the new investigation team's attention. If he was truly uninvolved, why was Mark so actively present at the scene? Was it a way to control the situation, misdirect efforts, or ensure nothing was found too soon? The investigators dug deeper. In a coworker's statement, Emily had confided that Mark sent harassing texts after their breakup. One specific message was recorded: "If you leave, I'll know. Don't try hiding anything from me." At the time, police noted it but didn't consider it a direct threat. Now, with confirmation of Emily's murder, those words took on a darker tone: signs of control and potential violence. Additionally, the 2011 report showed Mark lived in an apartment just 2 blocks from the grocery store where Emily worked. This proximity placed him within easy reach to monitor her daily routine. When combining all the details, ex-boyfriend with a contentious history, threatening texts, nearby residents, and participation in the search, a clearer picture of suspicion emerged. During the October 28, 2018, meeting, the lead investigator concluded Mark Ellison must be considered a priority subject. 7 years ago, we had no body, no physical evidence, so he slipped under the radar. But now, with a confirmed homicide, his actions need to be re-examined in a new light. To solidify this decision, the case analysis team reviewed the volunteer logs. A small note became significant: during the December 5, 2011, search, Mark was assigned to a trail patrol group. They noted he was overly enthusiastic, repeatedly suggesting the group focus on Kashwitna Lake rather than other roads. At the time, no one found it odd, since the lake was a logical suspect area. But with current findings, his behavior took on a new meaning. He seemed to be controlling the search scope, possibly to ensure the submerged car wouldn't be found by outdated sonar technology. All this evidence was compiled into a new 40-page report with a bolded conclusion: Mark Ellison is added to the list of subjects for re-investigation. Suspicion level, high. Emily Hartman's case, silent for 7 years, now had a clear direction. From a hopeless disappearance to a murder revealed beneath the lake, the investigation's next phase would focus entirely on the man once closest to the victim, who also happened to be near the scene from the very start. Bringing Mark Ellison back into the spotlight prompted the Anchorage investigation team to pursue a new avenue: digital evidence. In 2011, telecom data analysis was limited, with phone records typically retained for only a few months or weeks. But by 2018, under pressure from the victim's family and the public, police contacted the regional carrier to request all long-term stored data. Surprisingly, a portion of the cell tower logs from December 2011 remained in cold storage for legal purposes. The technical team immediately cross-referenced the records with Mark Ellison's phone number. The report sent back stunned the room into silence. At 7:20 p.m. on December 3, 2011, Mark Ellison's phone pinged a cell tower near Kashwitna Lake. The distance from the apartment he claimed as his residence to that tower was at least 12 miles, directly contradicting his 2011 statement that he never left home. This timing also aligned almost perfectly with when Emily's phone signal went dead, 7:12 p.m. The two facts side by side showed both Mark and Emily were near Kashwitna Lake, in the same brief fateful window, the moment leading to her death. The team continued scouring online records. Some younger investigators, familiar with online forums, searched for Mark Ellison's name across old platforms. Surprisingly, Redditors also joined the effort and quickly uncovered a peculiar clue. On a now-defunct car forum still accessible in archives, a January 2012 post from an account with an IP address matching Anchorage, where Mark lived, discussed risks of driving on ice. The user described in detail, if an SUV falls through ice and sinks in a lake, it usually won't be found for years unless there's really good sonar. In the current context, those words hit like a punch to the gut. They suggested Mark not only knew about a car sinking through ice scenario, but also discussed the likelihood of a vehicle remaining hidden underwater for years, exactly what happened to Emily's Subaru. Redditors sent the full link and archive to the police. A forensic tech expert confirmed the IP address matched the area where Mark rented his apartment in 2012, when he still lived there. From two sources, cell tower data and online evidence, the picture clarified: Mark Ellison was not only present near the lake the night Emily vanished, but also showed an unusual interest in the exact scenario of a car submerged under ice. This couldn't be dismissed as mere coincidence. During the November 5, 2018, meeting, the lead investigator placed two documents side by side, the 7:20 p.m. ping data and the printout of the car sinking post. He looked around the room and said firmly, "This is when we bring him in. From suspicion, we now have digital evidence to move to direct questioning." Emily Hartman's case, after 7 years of silence, finally had a tight link between the victim and a specific suspect. And that name, Mark Ellison, was no longer a vague figure in faded statements, but the center of the new investigation. On November 7, 2018, just 2 days after the team agreed to summon Mark Ellison, an official notice was sent to his rented apartment in suburban Anchorage. It read simply, "You are requested to appear at the Anchorage Police Department to assist in providing information related to the Emily Hartman case." He didn't resist, even appearing calm as he entered the interrogation room. The camera was on from the start, recording audio and video. Sitting across from two investigators, Mark maintained a composed demeanor, arms crossed. When asked about the night of December 3, 2011, he repeated his old statement, "Home alone, watching TV late, never left the apartment. I've said this multiple times, I don't know where Emily went or what happened. We'd broken up, I wasn't in contact anymore." His voice was flat, unshaken. The investigators let him finish, then slowly placed a thick printed file on the table. Inside was the cell tower data. undeniable proof that Mark's phone pinged a tower near Kashwitna Lake at 7:20 p.m., the night Emily disappeared. For a moment, Mark's calm faltered. He blinked rapidly, shoulders tensing. That's impossible. My phone was at home. Maybe I lent it to someone. I don't remember. The investigator countered immediately. You lent it out. The night Emily vanished, someone took your phone to Kashwitna Lake. Who can confirm this? Mark stammered, then shook his head. I don't recall, maybe an old friend, but he couldn't provide a specific name. The investigators exchanged glances, then took turns presenting more evidence. One slid the printout of the car forum post toward Mark. Familiar with this forum? This is a post from January 2012, from an account with an IP matching your area. It says, if an SUV falls through ice, it won't be found for years. Do you remember writing this? Mark briefly looked down, bit his lip, then gave an awkward laugh. I was on lots of forums, just chatting nonsense. It was just hypothetical, nothing more. But to the investigators, his denial only deepened suspicion. The interrogation lasted nearly 3 hours. Each time he was pressed, Mark deflected, claiming foggy memory, blaming a friend borrowing the phone, or insisting he wrote online for fun. But the more he spoke, the more he contradicted himself. Initially, he claimed he stayed home all night. When confronted with the ping data, he suggested someone else had his phone. When asked who could have entered his apartment to take it, he had no answer. When Mark left the station that evening, the case file had grown thicker with suspicion. The investigators didn't buy his denials. They held an emergency meeting right after he left, concluding, inconsistent statements, clear contradictions. From now on, Ellison needs surveillance. A semi-official monitoring order was issued. Surveillance vehicles parked near his apartment, with officers taking turns observing his movements. Requests were made to access his phone and computer data. In the November 8 summary report, the lead investigator wrote, Subject Mark Ellison continues to deny involvement but cannot explain cell tower data. His friend borrowed phone excuse lacks logic and corroboration. He's hiding the truth. Contradictions in his statements provide grounds to intensify surveillance and prepare the next step. The Emily Hartman case, once a hopeless cold case, now had a central figure. And in the investigators' eyes, the contradictions in that first interrogation were the first cracks leading to Mark Ellison's downfall. After the initial interrogation revealed clear contradictions, the team didn't take long to decide the next step. They needed a warrant to search Mark Ellison's home. The digital evidence, cell tower data, and the suspicious forum post, combined with his flimsy denials, was enough to convince a judge to sign the warrant. On November 15, 2018, at 7 a.m., a convoy of police cars, lights flashing but sirens silent, stopped in front of Mark's small rented apartment in suburban Anchorage. He was asked to step outside onto the porch while officers conducted a thorough search. The primary target was the garage, where Mark spent much of his time working on cars. The garage, less than 20 square meters, was packed with tools, hammers, pliers, wrenches, and heavy-duty mechanical equipment. Forensic technicians carefully collected each item, looking for traces linking to the trauma on Emily's skull. After hours of searching, one item stopped them, a metal rod with a rubber hammerhead, used for car frame repairs. The metal surface had an odd dent, eerily matching the type of injury noted in the forensic report on the victim's skull. The item was immediately sealed as evidence. An expert quietly said, "If we had to pick a murder weapon, this is the top candidate." But the discoveries didn't stop there. In a wooden desk drawer in the garage, under a pile of cluttered papers, investigators found a personal notebook with a worn leather cover. Flipping to the last pages, they spotted a scrawled note, Kashwitna, 12-2000 elevenths. No further explanation, just that chilling line. In the current context, it was tantamount to an indirect confession. Mark had been at Kashwitna Lake at the time of Emily's disappearance. Other items in the garage were noted, though not yet conclusive: a pair of thick black gloves, some rags with faint brown stains. All were sent for analysis. A veteran officer remarked, 7 years on, he thought no one would touch him. But the traces are still here, waiting to be uncovered. When Mark was informed of what police found, his face briefly betrayed him. He tried to stay calm, claiming the garage was accessible to many, that the tool could have been used by anyone, and the notebook was just a fishing trip note. But his denials sounded hollow. The investigators didn't argue back, only recorded his statements. Knowing the tide had turned, suspicion had become a potential accusation. In the report sent to the prosecutor that evening, the lead investigator wrote, "Search of Mark Ellison's garage recovered a mechanical tool matching the skull fracture on the victim." Additionally, a personal notebook contained the note Kashwitna 12, 2011. These findings strengthened the hypothesis that the subject was at the scene and likely caused Emily Hartman's death. At this point, in the eyes of the investigation, Mark Ellison was no longer just a volunteer searcher or a suspicious ex-boyfriend. He was officially the prime suspect in Emily Hartman's murder. And from suspicion, the case now had enough foundation to prepare for a criminal charge. After the garage search results and forensic report were sent to the prosecutor's office, police decided to summon Mark Ellison again. He could no longer feign innocence, as in the first interrogation, as the case file now had enough weight to dismantle his weak excuses. On the morning of December 3, 2018, exactly 7 years since Emily Hartman's disappearance, Mark entered the Anchorage police interrogation room, his face paler than before. On the table, investigators had laid out photos of the recovered Subaru, the notebook with the Kashwitna 12, 2011 note, and images of the mechanical tool matching the skull fracture. Initially, Mark maintained his defiant stance, repeating the home, all-night story from the previous interrogation. But when the lead investigator slid the photo of the hammer tool toward him, he swallowed hard. His eyes no longer met theirs, fixed instead on the table. After a heavy silence, Mark let out a long sigh and changed his story. "All right, I did meet Emily that day." He claimed that on the afternoon of December 3, 2011, he and Emily had arranged to talk. She came to the store after her shift, and they sat in his car near the back parking lot. The conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument. Mark admitted he was jealous, angry that Emily had cut off contact and wouldn't give him another chance. When pressed, he said after the argument, Emily stormed off, then got in her Subaru and drove away. That was the last time he saw her. The investigators exchanged cold glances. One placed the forensic evidence on the table, a photo of Emily's skull with its distinct fracture. "Mark, we know Emily didn't drive off on her own," the investigator said, voice measured. "Scientific evidence shows she was struck hard on the head before the car sank. The weapon left marks matching the tool found in your garage." Mark paled, shaking his head quickly. "No, you don't understand. I didn't do that. I might have gotten angry, said some harsh things, but I didn't touch her. Emily was alive when she left me." He clung desperately to his words, voice trembling, hands clasped tightly. The lead investigator leaned forward. "If Emily left alone, how do you explain your phone pinging a tower near Kashwitna Lake, right when her phone went dead? How do you explain the notebook entry, Kashwitna 12, 2011? And why, in 7 years, did you never mention meeting Emily that night?" Cornered, Mark shifted his story again. He said, they drove together near the Kashwitna Lake Road for private talk. And after arguing, Emily insisted on driving off alone in the snowstorm. "I begged her to stay, but Emily was stubborn. She told me not to follow, then drove off in her Subaru. I panicked, thinking she might have lost control, and slid into the lake. But I didn't do anything. I just didn't report it because I was afraid of being blamed." Once again, the investigators countered with evidence. "If that's true," one officer said, "why is there a blunt impact on her skull? Why wasn't the windshield broken, the airbags undeployed, and the car in neutral? This wasn't an accident. This was a deliberate attack." Mark slumped, silent. He had altered his story 3 times in 1 hour, each version revealing more contradictions. His tales were like a patched-up rag. The more he stitched, the more holes appeared. To the investigators, this was a clear signal. Mark was scrambling amidst undeniable truth. The interrogation ended with an unofficial conclusion. Mark Ellison was no longer a witness, nor just a suspect. With the digital evidence, forensic findings, and his shifting statements, the case had reached the threshold for an arrest warrant. The officers left the room, leaving Mark slumped, hands clenched into fists, knowing the legal noose was tightening around him. On April 12, 2019, Anchorage's sky was overcast, with light snow falling. The road to the suburban neighborhood where Mark Ellison lived was blocked by a fleet of police cars. No longer was it covert surveillance or gentle interrogations. This time, police had an official arrest warrant signed by the Anchorage Superior Court. At 6:15 a.m., as Mark stepped out of his garage in an old gray jacket, about to drive to work. A loudspeaker blared, "Mark Ellison, you are under arrest for second-degree murder in the death of Emily Hartman. Raise your hands, step back, and follow instructions." Mark froze, eyes dazed as if unable to process what was happening. But moments later, as 2 SWAT officers approached, weapons drawn, he raised his hands in surrender. The click of handcuffs locking his wrists echoed sharply in the tense air. Neighbors poured out, standing on porches in shock. They watched the quiet man who nodded politely to them being led away in a police cordon. Some covered their mouths, whispers rising, "Was it really him?" All these years, the Anchorage police seized the moment to send a strong message. That same day, they held a press conference at headquarters. Behind the podium was a blue backdrop with white text, "Justice for Emily Hartman." The department's representative, Lieutenant Raymond Lewis, stepped forward, face stern, and began, "Today, we announce a major breakthrough in a case that has haunted the Alaska community for nearly 8 years. Mark Ellison, 34, the victim's ex-boyfriend, has been arrested and formally charged with second-degree murder in the death of Emily Hartman." Lieutenant Lewis emphasized the role of technology and the power of online communities. The truth is, without the information provided by the public, especially the Google Earth image shared on Reddit and the analytical discussions from the web sleuths community, we would have struggled to reopen the case and locate the Subaru Forester at the bottom of Kashwitna Lake. The internet, once again, proved it's not just a place for exchange, but can also become a tool for seeking justice. Reporters clamored with questions. Is there any evidence beyond the car and remains? How can you be sure Mark is the perpetrator? Lieutenant Lewis calmly responded, "We have multiple layers of evidence. First, cell tower data places Ellison's phone near the lake at the exact time the victim disappeared. Second, a mechanical tool in his garage matches the fracture on Emily's skull. Third, a personal notebook contains a note about Kashwitna Lake in December 2011. And finally, Ellison changed his story multiple times when confronted with this evidence. We believe the jury will find this compelling." News of the arrest spread rapidly across Alaska, from Wasilla to Anchorage, and even beyond the state, becoming a hot topic on national TV networks. For many, this wasn't just a case, it was a testament to the persistence of investigators, the power of modern forensic science, and the involvement of online communities. Emily's family attended the press conference. Her mother, Diane Hartman, broke down in tears when Mark Ellison's name was announced as the suspect. "We've waited so long for this day. Emily deserves justice. I want to thank everyone. The police, the volunteers, and even those online who never gave up on my daughter." The prosecution was also present. Alaska Assistant District Attorney Lauren Whitmore spoke, "We have formally filed charges for second-degree murder. If convicted, Ellison faces up to 99 years in prison under Alaska law. This won't be a simple trial, as the defendant may continue to deny involvement, but we have absolute confidence in the evidence." During the press conference, a question arose, what makes police certain this wasn't an accident? Whitmore replied immediately, The injuries on the skull, the condition of the car in the lake, the phone data, all form an undeniable picture. An accident cannot explain what we have in the case file. The next day, Mark Ellison appeared in Anchorage District Court to hear the charges. Before the cameras, he wore an orange prison jumpsuit, hair matted with sweat, face taut. When the judge read aloud, "You are charged with second-degree murder. Do you understand the charges?" He merely nodded, voice hoarse. "Yes, Your Honor." His defense attorney requested bail, but it was denied due to the severity of the crime and the risk of flight. Mark was remanded without bail. In the community, shock rippled outward. Wasilla neighbors shared with reporters that they'd seen Mark participating in the early 2011 searches. One recalled, he handed out flyers with Emily's picture, face completely calm. Thinking back, it's chilling. On social media, forums erupted in debate. Some declared justice has finally come, while others were cautious, saying only a conviction will confirm it. But all agreed, no one could forget the role of the online community, from Reddit users to Web Sleuths members who typed comment after comment, helping piece together a case that seemed buried in the archives. Meanwhile, local media published a flurry of editorials. One in the Anchorage Daily News wrote, "The true strength doesn't need to speak. The truth found its own way to be heard." No matter how many times Mark Ellison stayed silent or changed his story, the inanimate data, phone signals, skull fractures, the car deep in the lake, spoke for Emily. By early summer 2019, all attention turned to the Alaska District Attorney's Office, where prosecutors and forensic experts began building a comprehensive case for the trial that would determine Mark's fate. Prosecutor Lauren Whitmore led the charge. She directed her team to reconstruct the entire timeline, a seamless narrative starting from December 3, 2011. 6:45 p.m., Emily left the Wasilla grocery store. 7:12 p.m., her phone signal vanished. 7:20 p.m., Mark's phone pinged a tower near Kashwitna Lake. That same night, a green Subaru Forester vanished from the map, only to be recovered 7 years later from the lake bed, with Emily's remains inside. Whitmore slammed her hand on the table as she finished, her voice resolute. This was no accident. This was a deliberate murder. The prosecution compiled all evidence into an irrefutable chain of logic. They pointed out, Mark had the motive, opportunity, means, and behavior to conceal it. The argument was laid out in a large diagram hung in the meeting room, each link tightly connected. Mark attacked Emily in the car, inflicted fatal trauma, drove the Subaru to Kashwitna Lake, pushed the car into the icy water to stage an accident. Additionally, the prosecution prepared expert witnesses. The telecom provider would send a representative to explain the cell tower data. The forensic team would confirm the skull injury couldn't result from a traffic accident. Car accident experts would prove the car's condition when recovered. Manual gear in neutral, airbags undeployed, was entirely inconsistent with an accidental crash. While the prosecution worked to solidify their case, the defense, led by seasoned attorney Richard Coleman, scrambled to prepare. His main strategy was to sow reasonable doubt in the jury's minds. Coleman planned to argue an accident. Emily drove off alone in a snowstorm, lost control, slid into the lake, and the skull injury could have resulted from impact as the car sank. In their view, Mark was merely an unfortunate ex-boyfriend turned scapegoat. Coleman scoured old investigation reports for ambiguities. He emphasized that for years, police lacked enough evidence to charge, that the case was only revived after online discussions, and that no one saw Mark at the scene. In his prep notes, he wrote, "The police have built a neat picture, but they forget uncertain pieces remain. No witness clearly saw the license plate. Cell tower data only identifies a radius, not an exact location. The basic principle, if reasonable doubt exists, the defendant must be acquitted." Both sides knew this would be a tense battle. The prosecution had the advantage of scientific evidence and a coherent narrative. The defense had experience exploiting investigation weaknesses, turning contradictions into gaps. The media dubbed it Alaska's trial of the century as national TV networks committed to daily coverage. By late September 2019, the case file was sealed, the witness list finalized, and the judge announced the trial's start date. The Anchorage courthouse halls buzzed with murmurs. Wasilla residents, online communities, reporters, all awaited the moment truth would face justice. On the morning of October 14, 2019, Mark Ellison's trial began at Anchorage Superior Court. The courtroom was packed. Public benches filled with reporters, Wasilla locals, and faces from the 2011 search for Emily. No one wanted to miss the moment. Truth was dissected. After opening procedures, prosecutor Lauren Whitmore stepped forward, holding a thick file. She began with a firm statement, "This was not an accident, this was murder. And science will prove it." She then called the first witness, Dr. Robert Hale, a forensic expert from the Alaska lab. Hale took the stand, swore in, and spoke with a steady, weighty voice. A large screen behind him displayed images of Emily's skull, fractures marked in red. This is the autopsy result. The fracture stems from a direct, narrow impact blow, forming a T-shaped crack. This injury doesn't match a typical car accident. If the car crashed into the lake, we'd expect broader impact fractures, but none are present. Additionally, there's no injury consistent with airbag deployment, as the airbags never activated. He paused, switching to the next image. The Subaru Forester pulled from the lake. The driver's seat was fully reclined. The manual gear in neutral, the handbrake engaged. These indicate the car didn't crash naturally. Someone deliberately let it sink in a controlled manner. The courtroom was silent. Only the sound of defense attorney Richard Coleman's pen scratching notes broke the quiet as he prepared his counter. Even he furrowed his brow as Hale concluded. Emily Hartman's death occurred before her body sank. The time of death aligns with the night of December 3, 2011. Likely minutes after her phone stopped functioning. Next, the prosecution called telecom expert Janet Torres, a mobile network data analyst. A map of cell towers around Kashwitna Lake appeared on the screen. She pointed out, 7:12 p.m. Emily's phone went dead. 7:20 p.m. Mark Ellison's phone pinged the closest tower to the lake, with a narrow coverage radius of just a few miles. That entire night, Mark's phone didn't ping anywhere else. This completely contradicts his at-home claim. The jury leaned forward, listening intently. The prosecution added, "This isn't newly collected data. It was in the 2011 file, but only with 2018's advanced software could we pinpoint it accurately." The weight of science was clearer than any testimony. When Coleman cross-examined, he tried to sow doubt. He asked Hale, could the skull injury have come from hitting the steering wheel as the car sank? Hale replied firmly, "No, the fracture is focused, the impact angle doesn't match, and the steering wheel had no blood or tissue traces." Coleman turned to Torres. "Cell towers only identify a region, not an exact spot, correct?" Torres nodded. "Correct, but the region is a few miles, centered precisely on Kashwitna Lake." The rebuttals were scattered, weak. Coleman couldn't dismantle the logical wall built by the prosecution's cold data. He resorted to emotion, telling the jury, "We're judging a man on assumptions. No one saw him strike Emily. No one saw him drive to the lake. The prosecution is piecing together fragments." But even those words lacked weight against the charts, images, and technical analyses displayed before the court. For a week the trial revolved around scientific evidence. Each expert testified, each datum projected, each accident theory debunked. The prosecution deftly emphasized, science doesn't lie. It's unbiased, unemotional, and science points directly at the defendant. On the final day of arguments, Whitmore closed with a resolute voice. Emily Hartman didn't slide into the lake on her own. She was murdered, and Mark Ellison is the only one with the motive, opportunity, and means. Justice for Emily has one path. In the courtroom, the jury's eyes showed wavering conviction. Many nodded with each point. Coleman glanced at his client. Mark sat with his head bowed, face ashen, hands trembling. No trace of confidence or resistance remained, only a small figure dwarfed by the wall of evidence closing in. On November 4, 2019, after 3 days of closed deliberation, the jury returned, faces grave, carrying the verdict that would decide Mark Ellison's fate. The Anchorage Superior Court was silent. On the public benches, Emily's mother clutched her youngest son's hand, eyes red. Across the room, Mark sat motionless, gaze fixed on the floor, hands lightly cuffed in front. Defense attorney Richard Coleman whispered something to him, but he didn't respond. The judge called the jury foreman to stand. The middle-aged man held a paper, his voice low and hoarse. We, the jury, after considering all evidence and testimony, unanimously find the defendant, Mark Ellison, guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Emily Hartman. As the words landed, sobs erupted from the victim's family. Diane Hartman buried her face in her son's shoulder, tears streaming after nearly 8 years of waiting. Prosecutor Lauren Whitmore took a deep breath, nodding slightly. Mark remained still, his face frozen, but his clenched hands betrayed a tremor. The judge asked, "Does the defendant wish to say anything before sentencing?" Mark stood, voice small and halting. "I didn't mean it. I didn't think it would go this far." But his words carried no weight. The truth had been proven by science, evidence, and time. The judge delivered the sentence, under Alaska law, for second-degree murder. The defendant, Mark Ellison, is sentenced to 25 years in prison without early parole. This sentence is effective immediately. The gavel struck, sharp and heavy. In that moment, a sense of justice finally reached the Hartman family. It came late, so very late, after 7 years of exhaustion, thousands of hours of searching, and winters of dwindling hope. But justice arrived, real and tangible, in the form of a 25-year sentence for the man who destroyed Emily's life. The media outside broke the news instantly. Mark Ellison convicted of murder, sentenced to 25 years. On TV, images of Emily's mother wiping tears aired as she choked out, "My daughter will never come back, but at least the truth has been acknowledged." Justice came late, but it came. For Wasilla and all of Alaska, the verdict was more than a confirmation. It proved that even a case frozen as a cold case could, through forensic science, digital data, and online community power, have its truth pulled from the icy depths like the Subaru Forester itself. Mark was led from the courtroom in his orange jumpsuit, head bowed, wrists cuffed. Behind him, the watching eyes held not just anger, but relief. The iron door closed, ending a dark chapter of the case, leaving echoes of pain, but also a testament to faith in justice. But the story didn't truly end there. From investigators' perspectives, the Emily Hartman case became a landmark, taught in training classes and analyzed at criminology conferences across the U.S. In the final report, the Anchorage Police Department highlighted 3 core factors. First, cell tower data, overlooked in early years due to less advanced technology, became the key when reanalyzed with new software. A single ping at 7:20 p.m. on December 3, 2011, exposed Mark Ellison's lie. The lesson: no detail is too small in an investigation. It's about timing and tools to exploit it. Second, underwater search technology. In 2011, the sonar used had low resolution, showing only vague patches. 7 years later, with next-generation side-scan sonar, Google Earth imagery, and amateur divers' efforts, the Subaru Forester was found. This taught investigators that science advances, and a frozen case isn't hopeless forever. Third, and most debated, the Internet's role. From Google Earth images, shared on Reddit, to web sleuths' analyses of the lake object's dimensions, online communities became a collective witness. Public pressure forced the case's reopening, and online volunteers sustained momentum to keep it from being forgotten. At a post-trial seminar, an investigator said, "We used to think witnesses were only those who saw with their own eyes. Now witnesses can be thousands of online eyes, scrutinizing details our official teams lack the manpower to track." The media called the Emily Hartman case the intersection of 3 centuries of investigation, direct witness instinct, traditional criminal procedure, and technology's power, the Internet. It showed modern investigations are no longer confined behind police station doors, but are collaborative processes where digital data and collective intelligence converge to reveal truth. In December 2019, Emily Hartman's file was officially closed with a red solved stamp. But for many, it wasn't just a solved case. It was proof of persistence, of belief that justice may come late, but will come. At a small memorial in Wasilla, Emily's mother placed her daughter's photo on a snow-white floral altar, whispering, "You've been found, and you've helped teach the world a lesson." The Emily Hartman case in Alaska didn't just end with Mark Ellison's 25-year sentence, it left practical lessons for life in the U.S. today. The fact that cell tower data, overlooked in 2011, became damning evidence in 2019 shows technology can reshape how we understand truth. In daily life, this reminds us that every action, from phone calls to mobile locations, leaves a trace. In a modern society like the U.S., where privacy and safety are balanced, this story underscores that transparency and accountability in personal behavior are more crucial than ever. The discovery of the Subaru Forester, through advanced sonar and Google Earth imagery, reflects how technology serves not just science, but community safety. This encourages us in everyday life to proactively learn and apply technology to enhance safety for ourselves and families, from home cameras to location tracking apps for long trips. And the detail of Reddit and web sleuth communities analyzing data to pressure police to reopen the case is clear proof that collective online power can deliver justice. In today's U.S., where fast-paced lives can isolate people, this is a reminder that community unity, whether in person or online, remains key to fighting injustice. In sum, Emily's case teaches 3 things. Technology is a tool for justice, personal transparency is the foundation of trust, and united communities are an undeniable force. Thank you for following the journey to justice for Emily Hartman, a case showing that technology and community can change a truth once thought buried forever. Subscribe to the channel to join us for more true crime stories, where justice always finds a way to speak, even if belatedly.